Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Brazen violence.
A huge loss for, I want to say, for the Canadian Sikhs. Like he was a face of Canada Sikh.
A prominent Surrey leader and activist gunned down outside his Gurdwara. Plus, war of words.
We could have had a conversation. He could have lifted the phone, and he hasn't. He has been a bully all the way through this.
Bold accusations by Surrey's mayor against the province's safety minister over the future of policing in the city. And economic impact.
Everybody is getting money to get what they want, housing and all that.
Why some residents in Kitimat are feeling encouraged by the completion of the LNG Canada project.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lien Yeung. Anita is away tonight. We begin tonight in Surrey, where police say the killing of a man outside a Sikh temple Sunday night appears to have been targeted. They say the victim was the temple's president, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, and are asking for the public's help in their investigation. Our Renee Filipponi has more on the death of the prominent community leader.
The brazen act of violence has shocked Surrey Sikh community. President of the Guru Nanak Gurdwara, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, was gunned down in the temple's parking lot. Crowds gathered overnight, grieving the leader. Nijjar was an outspoken voice in the push for a separate Sikh nation in India's Punjab state.
It does appear to be a targeted incident.
Police are not speaking to motive.
I am absolutely appalled that this would take place in a house of worship in the city of Surrey, or anywhere for that matter.
People outside the temple were reluctant to comment, citing both concerns for personal safety and for family in India.
Everyone is feeling so sad here because he was so good guy.
A huge loss for, I want to say, for the Canadian Sikhs. Like he was a face of Canada Sikh.
CBC News agreed to withhold these men's names. Just hours before he was killed, Nijjar talked to the congregation about a referendum he was helping organize for an independent Khalistan. That kind of political action is why CSIS had warned him about threats, according to the World Sikh Organization.
That this hit, this assassination, needs to be investigated thoroughly. It's not just the people who pressed the trigger, it's the ones who ordered it. So we have, once again, strong suspicions that this is foreign interference in Canada.
Threats will be part of the investigation as they move forward, and I'm not going to confirm any threats at this particular time.
Ottawa is taking any claims of foreign interference seriously.
With regards to any national security concerns, naturally those are issues that we take very sensitively.
Police are not providing any information about suspects and are asking any witnesses to come forward. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Surrey.
And happening right now, members of the local Sikh community are gathering at the Gurdwara where Nijjar was shot last night. Our reporter Tanya Fletcher is live on the scene. So, Tanya, we saw many people gathered there last night, and we're seeing a gathering today. How are people feeling this evening?
Yeah, Leanne, a lot of questions, a lot of certainty, and a lot of unease here tonight. As you can see behind me, people are starting to stream into this building right next to the main building of the Gurdwara here on the property. I spoke with some about why they're coming here. Turns out this meeting was called, it's a gathering of the Sikh community members to really share their feelings, share their concerns, and frankly, there's a lot of fear around safety, fears that perhaps there could be other members in the community targeted. We spoke with one man who was on his way into the meeting about why he is attending here tonight. Here's what he told us.
I have a lot of respect for Mr. Nijjar. He was a very nice person and he was a very able leader. So he was raising issues of human rights and various other Sikh issues. So that's why everyone respects him, and out of his respect, I am here. A lot of people believe that Mr. Nijjar was specifically targeted and he was deliberately targeted inside the Gurdwara. I also believe so.
He went on to tell me he, in fact, felt betrayed by a lot of Canadian agencies. They feel in terms of protection that their community isn't being heard, that their concerns are not being heard by the officials who need to hear them. And in fact, just steps from here is where the shooting happened. I'm going to get the camera just to pan over so you can take a look at just how close this is for people, both physically, logistically, and emotionally on this property. It's at the end of this road down here is where the pickup truck was found at the entrance, just off the road at the back of the property. And they say that's really concerning because this is sacred ground for them. This is a house of worship. And to have that happen in such a personal, connecting place is really what feels most devastating of all. I spoke with another community member who says he and many others in the community didn't go to work today because they were so devastated by the loss of what they call a brave freedom fighter and their leader in this community. Leanne.
All right, thank you so much for that, Tanya. We can certainly feel the fear. Lots more to come in the story. Tanya Fletcher live for us from Surrey. The trial of Ibrahim Ali resumed today after a 2-week break. Ali is accused of first-degree murder for killing a Burnaby teenager 6 years ago. The teenager's body was found in a park. Her identity is covered by a publication ban. Our Liam Britton has an update on what the jury heard.
Today's evidence was highly technical, but it could prove critical as arguments in the trial develop. Specifically, the Crown may have been trying to establish the credibility of their expert witnesses ahead of any questions by the jury or defense. Taking the stand were 2 forensic experts from an RCMP lab that processed samples both from the victim's body and Ali's. Christine Crossman, an RCMP biologist, explained how the chain of custody is maintained for evidence like body swabs. She told jurors about computer logging of every transfer of every piece of evidence between techs and storage and testing processes, and she said each transfer is logged with a barcode scanner and a tech's unique PIN code. Jeremy Fenn, a search technologist at the lab who is an expert on sperm evidence, explained how scientists like himself ID human sperm cells. Now, neither of the experts offered conclusions today tying Ali to any DNA evidence, but today's evidence could be about laying the groundwork for those conclusions. Ali has pleaded not guilty. He sat in court wearing a dark suit, often with his head down and occasionally rocking in his chair as he listened to a translator. Forensic DNA evidence is expected to pick up tomorrow. Now, the defense has not had a chance to cross-examine the DNA experts. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
The war of words between the province and the city of Surrey escalated today in dramatic fashion. Surrey Mayor Brenda Locke accused Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth of bullying and even misogyny. It comes as confusion lingers over how the city will be policed. Helping us make sense of that confusion, Municipal Affairs reporter Justin McElroy is here. So, Justin, what spurred today's exchange?
Yeah, Liang, just the latest in a series of twists and turns that have lasted months and months in Surrey. It was last week that council voted in closed-door session that they wanted to continue on their plan to keep the RCMP and get rid of the Surrey Police Service. The province responded to that by saying that they wanted information from the city of Surrey on details as to whether they would meet their requirements in place. Well, that hadn't happened over the weekend, and so Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth, at around 9 o'clock or so, put forward an email demanding that the city give that information by 1 p.m. today. Well, the mayor of Surrey was not happy. She held an emergency press conference saying that she was disappointed with how the province was going about this in terms of process, but even more so, the personality of Farnworth towards her over this. Take a look at some of what she had to say.
We could have had a conversation. He could have lifted the phone, and he hasn't. He has been a bully all the way through this. I have never, ever used the gender card. But in this case, I absolutely think there is misogyny going on, no doubt in my mind.
So if you thought this might end with the province and the city holding hands and saying that we've come to some sort of compromise, seems a little bit unlikely for that to take place given all that transpired today.
Yeah, Justin, that was really something, watching the back and forth that went through today. So what's the province's response, though, been? Don't they have final say regardless?
Well, they do, and indeed, the city did give that information to the province today, and the province sent forward a statement at the end of this afternoon, essentially saying, thank you, we're going to review this, and it's still up to us to make this decision. And ultimately, that was something that the mayor acknowledged when she was asked time and time again, well, what options are in place for the city if the province decides to play hardball or argue that they have not met the conditions that they believe need to be in place in order to keep the RCMP. Here's what Locke had to say on that.
It's clear in the Police Act that cities get to choose their police departments. That is our responsibility. Yes, they can. Yes, I know they can overrule cities, but I would expect that with all of this, there would be a reasonable person. If you're asking me, do I think legally, I can't answer that.
Whether people in Surrey think it's reasonable that after 5.5 years of this debate, they're still debating whether they should go to one police force or the other, a different question entirely, though. Lien?
Indeed. All right. Thank you so much for that, Justin. Justin McElroy reporting live for us tonight. After years of controversy and opposition, the Coastal GasLink pipeline project is almost complete. Kitimat is home to the LNG Canada processing plant, and some residents say it has already transformed the community. As Jessica Chung explains, the project's economic and environmental impacts are already taking shape.
Growing up in Kitimat, Brandon Heighton never expected he could ever start a business in his hometown.
Growing up, we saw a lot of the industries leave town and shut their doors, which, definitely had an impact on the community that was, thriving.
An influx of workers from the construction of a new plant convinced him to take the plunge, opening an ultra-modern microbrewery in April. It's just one example of how the community of Kitimat has transformed since it was chosen to be the site of the LNG Canada terminal, the country's largest private infrastructure project 4 years ago. The giant liquefaction plant is located at the bottom of the fjord south of Kitimat. It will process gas from the Coastal GasLink pipeline and transport it across the Pacific Ocean to markets in Asia. The factory's construction now employs over 7,000 people in a town of 8,000 residents.
Because these plants generally they're designed for a 25-year life expectancy, and for most people that's a pretty good career.
The Murdochs will be among the 300 employees that will operate the plant once it's built. Kitimat's mayor says the project has been great for residents and for the town's relationship with the Haisla Nation, whose land the project is being built on.
So the relationship is just, it's 100 times better than what it used to be. And really it's LNG Canada that brought that together.
In his garage, Elder Sammy Robinson says he's happy the project is bringing jobs and money to his people.
But so far, it's benefited a lot of things, LNG being here. You can see it every day. Yeah, but Lord knows what the impact will be after 5-6 years.
The nation has often endured rather than profited from the city's multiple industrial projects, but this time they have been partnered with LNG Canada from the start, with an agreement that the nation will get a share of the profits as well as well-paying jobs.
The tipping point in regards to the support for LNG was the fact that it evaporated. If anything were to ever happen, LNG would evaporate into the air.
The construction on the plant is set to finish in 2025. Jessica Chung, CBC News, Vancouver.
Some sad news. Over 1,000 people died in BC due to toxic, unregulated drugs in the first 5 months of this year. Those deaths represent a nearly 3% increase in deaths at the same time last year. The BC Coroner Service says a majority of the deaths are being caused by fentanyl. Methamphetamine and cocaine are the next most common substances. While the number of deaths due to toxic drugs remains high, there was a decline between April and May, from 218 deaths to 176. Nanaimo Regional General Hospital has added 12 new beds to its intensive care unit. It's part of a plan to replace outdated services.
It's 3 times as large in terms of space as the current ICU, which is about, and that's a significant, I think, change, not just in the quality of care, but the quality of work that all of our staff here are able to provide.
The new ICU includes larger single-patient rooms, a family consult room, and updated equipment. A 12-bed high-acuity unit is still under construction. The combined budget for both projects was over $60 million. British Columbia is getting some much-needed assistance from south of the border as we battle the largest wildfire in the province's history. More than a month after it started, the Donny Creek fire is still out of control. Over 5,300 square kilometers in size, it continues to threaten the Alaska Highway. A U.S. incident management team, along with 2 specialized crews, arrived over the weekend. They will provide support in BC's response and fire management. 2 years after a wildfire destroyed most of the village of Lytton, BC, the state of emergency has been lifted. That means that residents will soon be able to return and begin rebuilding. 2 people died during the wildfire, which also destroyed many buildings in the Lytton First Nation. Well, nothing says serenity quite like a quiet ride on your bicycle in the forest. But for those unable to get up on 2 wheels, there is a way to still get into the woods. We headed to the North Shore last week to meet the folks getting seniors into the woods on a custom tricycle.
I'm Ian Rosianis, and I'm the chairman of Cycling Without Age North Shore. Cycling Without Age is a volunteer-driven program to take people for a ride in a 3-wheeled bicycle like this one here, which is basically a couch on wheels.
Ooh, this is nice and warm.
And we are currently sitting outside the Berkeley Care Residence, where we provide rides every 2 weeks. And there's a beautiful trail through the forest that we like to use. The kid's got 2 seats up front with safety belts to make sure that people stay in place and don't get injured during our rides. We have an electric motor driving us to help us get up the hills in North Vancouver and to make riding very pleasant for the pilots. Safety is really important to us. We ride slowly. It's not about speed, it's about enjoying the journey. Oh, look at the dogs. Hey. Hello, dog. Hello. Being a pilot is a very rewarding experience because you get to see the joy you bring to people. And riding the trail here, particularly the one through the forest, is a Zen-like experience. Just very quiet, slow, and beautiful in the beauty of nature, and you enjoy it together with your passengers.
Welcome, ladies.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
What a lovely idea, hey, Amy?
That is delightful.
Yeah, I was just in Japan, and we were in Kyoto, and they had these human-powered rickshaws that you actually pull and push, but I think a bike is actually much better.
I think I can handle that. Maybe not today. Maybe not today is the best day to be out on your bike.
This weather is not so good.
It's not, but it's short-lived and it's much needed. Much cooler today than we typically have seen. 12 degrees right now still at the airport, and 12 in Pitt Meadows, 11 in Abbotsford, 11 in Hope. One thing we're going to keep an eye on tonight, getting cold enough on the mountain passes of the Coquihalla, Highway 3, and the Okanagan Connector. We could see some wet snow. We saw a bit today on the Coquihalla, but this will be a risk through until tomorrow morning. For us, though, this cooler temperature is quite short-lived, and by the weekend we see a big bump up in the temperature. So today and tomorrow, especially on the cooler side, and then we get warmed right back up, especially by Friday. That'll sort of be peak heat, but certainly sunshine heading our way. Just not right now. We will continue to see the rain overnight and early tomorrow morning. It will taper off to more scattered showers by the afternoon. Wednesday, though, we'll start off heavier on the cloud, but dry, and then we will see increasing sunshine throughout the day, and then Thursday kicks off that next round of sunny and warm weather. We'll get up to about 22 at the water and 25 inland.
That short-term forecast looks excellent.
It does.
Love it. All right, thanks, Amy. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet.
And starting today, bikers in Vancouver can run errands without worrying about bolt cutters sabotaging their ride home. Vancouver's first free bike valet service will operate all summer long. The service operates similar to a car valet, with staff parking and someone retrieving your wheels for you. The valet is located beside Vancouver City Centre SkyTrain station on Granville Street and can accommodate 100 bikes, e-scooters, strollers, and other personal mobility devices.
It's a safe way to drop off our bikes and electronic vehicles such as these ones, e-scooters, e-unicycles, and in a safe manner, because otherwise we would have to lock them up outside and they'll be subject to theft and vandalism and what have you.
The free valet service will be open rain or shine starting today to September 1st. Another area of the region promised more rental units, why many say these new units simply won't be enough in an escalating rental crisis. That's next. And thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream. A new way of practicing veterinary medicine in BC is seeing some big success in the Kootenays. Last June, 7 different clinics in the region joined forces to make sure animals get the care they need and staff get the relief they require. As Corey Bullock explains, the arrangement comes amid a massive shortage of veterinarians.
Good job, Rosa. For veterinarians like Dr. Jasmine Hardy, no 2 days are the same.
We have a lot of pressure on us to, always be available to provide services.
1 year after forming a cooperative of vets in the East Kootenay, Hardy says that pressure is easing.
It's definitely increased my quality of life, the quality of life of the rest of the staff, and I know all the clinics in the co-op are feeling the same.
The stress was often overwhelming.
People were getting burnt out. We were going to lose really key staff, support staff, our veterinarians. Just about killed some of our staff, I think.
A new triage answering service means vets are called into the office less. Technicians determine over the phone whether it's an emergency or not.
They've been able to divert about 75% of the phone calls that come in.
Their success is now being recognized nationally. Tanglefoot has received the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association's 2023 Practice of the Year award.
I think it's well deserved, and a lot of what we do is behind the scenes, so it's nice to get recognized for that.
Part of the award focuses on the clinic's mentorship program. It's hosted more than 40 students in the past 5 years. It's also helped ease their staffing shortage, a problem that is continent-wide. The clinic has been able to hire 2 mentored students this year.
It's super important for their careers to be able to, get involved in cases, practice critical thinking themselves, get some hands-on surgical skills.
The East Kootenay Veterinary Group is not alone. 5 clinics in Kamloops also work together. Tanglefoot hopes other vets across BC will consider a cooperative approach.
It seems to be working very well, and we are absolutely plan to continue with it.
And that means dogs like Rosa and cats like Steve will continue to get the care they need. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
The BC government is promising more than 1,000 new affordable rental homes in Burnaby. The city says those units are badly needed. But as the CBC's Zara Premji explains, those who live there say it's just a start as they deal with rising costs.
So the only option that I see is moving out of the city that I like so much.
A reality many people in Burnaby have had to face as they watch the price of rentals go up and the number of affordable rental units go down.
Very expensive here, and there's not a lot of options.
They say the demand for more affordable rental housing in Burnaby is at an all-time high.
I feel like it's pretty overwhelming.
The province says it hears their calls for help and is responding as fast as it can.
And we know that the need for affordable housing is urgent. And for rental housing, we know we need a lot.
The Premier and the City of Burnaby have announced $253 million for almost 1,500 rental homes.
If 1,500 is what they think is going to be enough, then I think they're solely mistaken.
The homes will span across 10 different developments. Some are specifically for Indigenous people, seniors facing homelessness, low-income families, and people with disabilities.
There's a real affordability challenge in Burnaby, the rest of Metro Vancouver, so this is a very welcome announcement.
But she says it won't be enough. The BC Nonprofit Housing Association says the number of homeless people in Burnaby has gone up nearly 114% from 2014 to 2020, and it fears those numbers will climb even higher. Burnaby's mayor says he knows this will feel like a drop in the bucket at this point, but it's a start.
But let's face it, we had 30 years of non-action on affordable rental homes, and now we're all playing catch-up.
The Nonprofit Housing Association says data shows Burnaby needs more than 3,000 units by 2026.
We need the federal government to be coming to the table and scaling up those investments.
But for anyone looking for an affordable rental right now,
they don't need a new unit of housing. They need help making their rent affordable. And so a rent supplement can be a really quick turnaround and a short-term solution.
The BC government says it will continue to explore new ideas to get Burnaby residents and British Columbians into more affordable rental units. Zara Premji, CBC News, Burnaby.
Public consultations on a controversial housing project on Vancouver's west side have begun. The Jericho lands development, owned by 3 First Nations, would more than double the population of the neighborhood, with 13,000 new homes. As Yasmin Gandam reports, it's meant to create more affordable housing, but some argue it would take away from the neighborhood's character.
This is Jericho Lands, an area with high land value, currently home to a former garrison, several dozen homes, and to a private school. But the new project, first revealed in 2021, would see dozens of buildings, a mix of community centers, parkland, and wilderness spaces.
We're making a stand of who we are as the land owners of the territory. We've always been here. It's something that we're working together to help our communities, in a sustainable way.
The site is owned by the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations in partnership with the Canada Lands Company.
We're not a developer that you would see in a sense that's developing a property for their own profit, their own benefit. For my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and my colleagues, their families.
Open houses for the project began over the weekend, with a public consultation set to run into the fall. The proposal would need a rezoning vote by council, with a decision on the overall vision expected later this year. A minimum of 30% of the site will be affordable housing, including 20% social housing.
We know we have a major challenge of housing supply and the right kind of supply, supplying affordable housing, particularly different kinds of rental and social housing, and there's a great opportunity presented here by this project.
The Jericho Coalition formed as a collective voice opposing the development. This housing expert says although some residents of the affluent neighborhood are not happy about it, it's something that has been long overdue for the area.
For decades, government has forbidden homeowners and home buyers from agreeing to build something more dense. The value of the land is so great that what the market wants is big, tall apartment buildings.
A big concern for residents is the private school, West Point Grey Academy, located on the Jericho Hill portion of the lands. The school currently has a lease agreement with the development, but the corporation says they support the inclusion of the school.
There is a 2-year construction clause in it, so that's something that it won't be affected for the time.
The lease on the school is currently extended until 2040. An exact construction timeline on the development, if council votes to approve it, has yet to be determined. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Vancouver.
The search for a missing submersible that was visiting the wreck of the Titanic, the frantic rescue efforts, and who might be on board. That's next.
The SeaBus was one of the better ideas of the Barrett government in the 1970s. The bright orange SeaBuses have been scooting folks from North Vancouver to downtown ever since 1977. But is nothing sacred? Today, Grace McCarthy confirmed it's going to be goodbye orange, hello red, white, and blue.
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, all of the transit under British Columbia Transit in a phasing in operation will all be done in the colors, in a consistent color. As it is now, I think we have something like 6 or 7 different color combinations throughout the province.
In fact, if you put together the last dozen years of sea and transit buses, you get something that looks like a painter's apron. BC Hydro used to like green and blue trim when they ran the buses. The NDP went in for orange and brown, by purest coincidence, the party's own colors. And in the last year or so, everything's been geared to catch the BC spirit, red, white, and blue, again by equal coincidence, the colors of the Social Credit Party.
I think that would be a little bit of a picky criticism. We have started a long time ago on a consistent color combination throughout, and we're just being consistent.
It's a color scheme that will take a little getting used to.
The SeaBus, they're going to change the colors, the paint job.
Oh, are they? Oh.
That's the government colors.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
And do you want my opinion of it?
Yeah.
It's going to be red, white, and blue?
That's right.
Well, that's fine. That's dandy.
No, red and white's Canadian, red, white, and blue's American.
No, leave them as they are.
Why?
Because it's, yeah, I like the way they are, you know? Red, white, and blue? No.
McCarthy isn't saying how soon the SeaBuses will be repainted or how much it's all going to cost. But whatever the cost, in SeaBuses this year, red, white, and blue will definitely be in.
A major international search is underway in the deep waters off Newfoundland. A submersible vessel that was heading to the wreckage of the Titanic is missing, and there's concern time is running out. Kayla Hounsell now with what we know about the underwater tour and the race to rescue those on board.
This is the Titan, a small submersible designed to plunge the ocean depths, 4,000 meters. Its current mission to explore the wreckage of the Titanic and take tourists with it.
It is not for the faint-hearted to do something like this, to get in that sub. It's very close quarters. You're in it for a long time. You're bolted in from the outside. There's no way out.
Colin Taylor made the same voyage last summer.
Titan is a go for a dive to the Titanic.
He was on the same submersible owned by U.S. company Ocean Gate Expeditions, now missing in the North Atlantic with 5 people on board.
I can't tell you, the fear I have for these people.
The Titanic wreck is 685 kilometers south of St. John's. The Polar Prince, the ship that launched the submersible, lost contact with it about an hour and 45 minutes after it began diving Sunday morning. The Titan set out with 96 hours of oxygen on board.
It is a remote area, and it is a challenge to conduct a search in that remote area.
The U.S. Coast Guard is leading the search. The Canadian Coast Guard is assisting. Both are scrambling more resources to the site, searching from above and working on searching from below.
Right now, our capability is limited to sonar buoys and listening for sounds.
Taking a completely new approach to the sub design, and it's all run with this game controller and these touch screens.
That's OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush last summer. The company has been working to measure Titanic's erosion. It takes tourists along for about $250,000. There are reports British billionaire Hamish Harding is among those on board right now.
Wow.
Colin Taylor says his experience was unforgettable.
There was the bow of the Titanic. I mean, literally right there. And it was incredible.
He says OceanGate's crew is very capable, but that an experience like this is not without risk.
The Greek Coast Guard says 3 more bodies have been found in the area where a migrant ship sank last week. So far, 81 people are known to have died, and hundreds more are still missing. Chris Brown has the latest on this tragedy and the ongoing dangers of human smuggling.
Despite the awful loss of life, Greece's shipwreck tragedy has not stopped a surge of people from making a dangerous voyage trying to get to Europe. This is the Italian island of Lampedusa, crammed with new arrivals from Africa, and so is Spain's Gran Canaria. In Kalamata, Greece, 9 Egyptian men accused in the deaths of hundreds of people when that decrepit fishing boat sank last week came to court to face manslaughter charges. He was a victim, said one man's lawyer. He paid a sizable amount in Egyptian currency to get to Italy. While a Greek judge will eventually decide what their roles were, Pakistani authorities now also want to be involved. Several hundred of those feared dead came from Pakistan. The nation is grieving, said the defense minister, as the government announced a day of mourning. Until now, most of those trying to get to Europe from Africa have been Africans or from the Middle East, but economic conditions in Pakistan and Bangladesh are forcing people there to make the voyage too, says this migration expert.
So a travel to Europe where there is a lack of labor and there is sort of need for labor is maybe a sort of an appealing last sort of resort.
Then there's a question of why the boat sank with such a large loss of life, even though it was being monitored by Greece's Coast Guard. Pakistan says it will do its own inquiry into the sinking, which is unusual, says Sagona.
It's one of the first time we really see this direct involvement of the government of Pakistan or other government of sending people, because it may put more diplomatic pressure also on the European Union to clarify the story.
Europe has a new law meant to share responsibility for search and rescue, but it doesn't address when and how such rescues should be carried out. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has met with President Xi Jinping of China. Considering the frosty relations between Beijing and Washington, that in itself is progress. But as Patrick Falk tells us, there were no major breakthroughs announced.
Secretary Blinken revealed that the Chinese had not agreed to pick up military-level discussions. That will come as a major disappointment to the Americans. As we know, this was really key on the agenda for them, but Secretary Blinken said that they would continue to try and push for that. He also said that he told the Chinese that the US was not trying to hinder it economically, but that it simply didn't make sense for it to be exporting technology that might be used against it. He also said that they touched on the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and he'd said to the Chinese that there was concern about private Chinese companies providing support to Russia's war effort, but there was an acknowledgement that the government hadn't provided any lethal aid to Russia. So there were 3 key takeaways there. It was also, of course, very important that this meeting between President Xi Jinping took place with Antony Blinken as well. It's a symbolic sign that suggests there is perhaps a small bit of thawing in relations between the two sides. Xi Jinping also said that there was progress in some areas and that was very good. We don't know what specific progress he's talking about. Perhaps there will be further announcements about that in due course.
Patrick Falk for CBC News, Beijing.
The design for a national monument to Canada's military mission in Afghanistan has been unveiled in Ottawa. The central element is a sculpture that depicts 4 bronze flak jackets draped over crosses. It's in the middle of a walled sanctuary inscribed with the names of those who died and draws on elements of a sacred medicine wheel. The winning design was created by a team led by Indigenous artist Adrian Stimson from southern Alberta. The monument will be built across the street from the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa. More than 40,000 members of the Canadian Armed Forces served in Afghanistan. 158 were killed in the mission that lasted more than a decade. Days after a horrifying crash that killed 15 people and injured 10 more, the RCMP is trying to figure out what went wrong. The challenges of interviewing the survivors, that story after the break.
After weeks of protests and student walkouts, New Brunswick government has announced how it's changing a policy designed to protect LGBTQ+ students.
We are proud! Couldn't be prouder! If you can't hear us, yell a little louder!
We want this baseless attack on queer youth to end.
Yeah!
The Department of Education is making 3 changes to Policy 713, which will take effect on July 1st. The previous version of Policy 713 made it mandatory for teachers to obtain consent from the student before sharing any information with parents concerning name and pronoun changes. The new version removes that requirement. It's also no longer mandatory for teachers to respect a student's chosen name and pronouns if they're under 16. The government says teachers must now have consent from parents before using a student's chosen name and pronouns in an official capacity. There are differences between what Education Minister Bill Hogan has said publicly and what's actually in the policy.
And I understand the concept of what they're calling dead name, and I understand that the trauma that can cause with some of our students. If they want to use their gender identity and the name that they choose with their peers, then certainly by all means they should do that. But it puts teachers in an extremely challenging situation.
However, there's nothing in the policy that expressly forbids teachers from informally using a student's chosen name and pronouns. The old version of Policy 713 said students could participate in extracurricular activities consistent with their gender identity. The new version removes any reference to gender identity. The final policy revision mandates that schools have private universal washrooms available, but doesn't call them gender-neutral washrooms. But critics and education advocates say there's too much ambiguity in the new version of Policy 713.
There's discrepancies between what Minister Bill Hogan said in his press conference today and what's actually in the policy, as well as there's some typos in the policy that have been released that have a huge impact on the meaning of certain sections of the policy. So I would say certainly more confused about the policy now than before.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back.
And that's what empowered nations and empowered people to just literally steal land.
This is a consequence of your actions.
And it's time to give land back.
Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Police in Manitoba say it will take time to figure out what caused the crash that left 15 people dead and another 10 in hospital. The RCMP has begun interviewing survivors, and as Cameron McIntosh tells us, that province's premier will also conduct an internal review of the collision.
Traffic back to its busy normal. Flowers lay by the side of the highway. A small but stark reminder of what police say will take weeks, if not months, to investigate.
Accuracy is paramount.
On Thursday, 15 seniors were killed on a casino trip. The minibus they were traveling in was crossing the Trans-Canada Highway. It was struck by a semi-trailer, which had the right-of-way. Impact so severe, bodies require autopsies to be identified. Specialized analysis of crash site evidence is just beginning.
Was someone at fault here? Our job as investigators is to rule that out or to rule that in.
10 others, including the driver of the bus, were injured. They remain in hospital. The crossing is one of several high-volume crossings along Manitoba's Trans-Canada Highway where there are no overpasses.
Well, if you're asking the question, are we going to need more overpasses and underpasses and turn-off lanes and things like that, I mean, the obvious answer is yes.
My heart is broken for the families and loved ones affected by this tragic event.
Manitoba's premier, speaking of the accident for the first time, stopped short of promising changes. But she says,
after any accident or incident on our highways, there is an internal review that takes place.
In Dauphin, where most of the victims are from, shock is turning to grief.
These are our stickers. We have both small and large ones.
Tom Wenham printed a run of #DauphinStrong stickers. They're moving.
We had one person come in that was pretty sure that one of their friends was on the bus, and so it's definitely close to home.
Answers to questions just about everyone has here could take months. In the meantime, community leaders hope to hold a vigil or memorial event, but no plans have been firmed up just yet. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Dauphin, Manitoba.
Meanwhile, Friday's bus crash near Prince George that sent 18 people to hospital is once again highlighting safety concerns with logging roads. It's not the first time people have been injured using back roads in BC. In 2019, 2 university students died in a bus crash outside Bamfield on the island. Now, as Janella Hamilton reports, advocates are raising their voices again, saying there needs to be a greater emphasis on education and training.
I think people are using these roads more often than we've seen in the past.
This backroad safety expert says more drivers are relying on treacherous Forest Service roads that were initially designed for the logging industry to transport timber and are not as durable and safe as paved roads.
There's less traction on those roads, the corners are tighter, there's less visibility.
The concerns grow exponentially when natural disasters shut down major highways and all of that traffic is funneled to service roads. That's exactly what's happening on Vancouver Island right now with the continuing closure of Highway 4 due to a wildfire. This truck driver who has been using the detour says he recently witnessed a close call when a driver nearly lost control trying to navigate loose gravel on the bumpy road.
Those light vehicles like trucks and cars, it just bounces them right out. And if you're going fast, you just right off the road.
On Friday, a charter bus carrying 30 pipeline camp workers was driving on the Firth Lake Forest Service Road about an hour from Prince George. It went off the road and crashed, sending 18 workers to the hospital. As of Sunday, Northern Health says everyone injured in the crash has been released. The cause of the crash is still unclear, but RCMP say early morning rain made conditions quite poor.
Most of those roads have limited drainage.
It's not the first time a bus has crashed on an unpaved road. In 2019, a bus rolled down an embankment near Bamfield, killing 2 University of Victoria students.
But on a Forest Service road or resource road, you never really know what's coming unless you know that road. So it's just another level of hazard out there.
The Bamfield crash sparked a probe into whether the province was adequately maintaining forest service roads. In his report, BC's Auditor General found the ministry did not properly manage safety and environmental risks. He called on the government to bring in more rigorous inspections and maintenance. The call now is for improved signage, more emphasis on drivers' training, and better use of the province's radio communications system. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
And Amy Bell is back with more on the weather. Amy, a bit of a cool one, but you know what? I'm loving it.
I think
great.
A lot of people are. And if you're not loving it, then you just have to wait a few days and it'll get nice and sunny again.
Perfect. I have no air conditioning at home. Like, bring on the cool weather.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I know people were turning on the heat today, so it definitely was a bit of a shock to the system, but we were trending cooler over the weekend as well. We will continue to see at least one more day of these cooler temperatures, wet weather. We do have special weather statements up, some of those mountain passes along the Coquihalla, Highway 3, Allison Pass, and then parts of the Okanagan Connector could continue to see some wet snow, especially overnight and early tomorrow morning. The northern parts of the province, though, have been looking great today. Sunny and fairly warm, but very cold and very active weather systems. Just this low pressure trough came through, and that's what provided all of the precipitation and much cooler temperatures. It will move onward, though, and by Wednesday, we're getting back into a clearing trend and much warmer weather. So just a couple more days if you do not like the cool weather. Tomorrow, actually not bad on Vancouver Island. The system's kind of already passed by you. A bit cloudy in Tofino, but a nice mix in Comox and also for Nanaimo. Chance of some showers in the morning for Victoria. Very unsettled in Whistler, and then just showers out in the Fraser Valley with temperatures around 15. But yeah, another gorgeous day. Dees Lake, Prince Rupert, Port Hardy, all along the north and central coast looking great. We will see things a bit unsettled, though, right around the Prince George area, down through Williams Lake and into the Okanagan and the Kootenays. It will be Wednesday, though, that we gradually start to see everything brightening back up. So for tomorrow, we'll see that wet weather, just a high around 17. So a little bit warmer than we saw today, dropping to 13 overnight, marginally warmer on Wednesday, but then Thursday, Friday, you see we're setting up for another system with those warmer temperatures, that ridge of high pressure. So we'll see those temperatures, I'd say about 25, 26 inland for Thursday and Friday. Friday, kind of peak heat. You might want to hit a patio after work. Saturday, keeping the sunshine and just cooler by a degree or two. But yes, for June, we're kind of splitting the odds here. We've had some rain, but lots of sunshine as well.
And taking notes, Friday, patio after work.
I recommend it.
Okay, thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
The company that owns Bud Light collected a top international award for marketing today, and it used the occasion to say that the controversy and backlash over a recent campaign was a wake-up call and a reminder to be humble. Bud Light lost its place as the top-selling beer in the U.S. after the campaign. As CBC's Anis Heydari explains, it's now ready to provide financial assistance to wholesalers after weeks of diving sales.
Bud Light has used LGBTQ branding for years.
Gay weddings, they're just like any wedding.
So the fallout from a recent promotion was unexpected.
I got some Bud Lights for us.
An ad with a transgender woman back in April prompted a conservative backlash online, even from aging rock stars.
Bud Light.
Now, analysts say Bud Light lost its top spot in U.S. retail beer sales.
This is sort of uncharted water for a brand like that when it comes to 7 weeks of sharp declines of that magnitude. And it's something that a lot of eyes and ears are obviously on at the moment.
The company distanced itself from the Instagram post, a response that didn't win many LGBTQ fans.
That was awful, and they kind of let out like a little bit of an apology, I saw.
You're just doing stuff because it's ticking a box, and then as soon as you get backlash, you're walking away.
Bud's biggest mistake.
Marketers say the response has done as much damage as the promotion did.
Their reaction was what caused the problem. Their reaction was lukewarm. It wasn't decisive either for the main heterosexual audience, neither was it decisive for the queer community. So they sat in the middle and ultimately failed.
In this current
Including trans people in marketing can have social value too.
So having a beer company directly market to queer and trans people says, hey, hold on, we actually recognize that you exist, that you're part of our community. we want some of your dollars, but also, you exist.
And using only straight people in ads could imply everyone else has a problem.
The problem with the idea of neutrality is that we're essentially saying that straight is neutral. Queer and trans people, straight people, we all are part of this community and this ecosystem.
There's also real financial incentives from representation.
All beer is queer, and it has been for over 10 years. Brands have been pouring rainbows out from pumps, cans, in supermarkets and bars across the world because the dollars from the queer community are there and on the table.
Rainbow marketing may bring in new customers, but changes could be coming. The company executive has said the Bud Light controversy was a wake-up call. Anis Haydari, CBC News, Toronto.
This little piggy went to a rest stop, but ended up in a brand new home a wee ways away. The story of an abandoned pet pig south of Prince George. That's next.
Summer is almost here. The city is already buzzing with events. And there is good news. The number of gun crimes is down.
We are encouraged by the numbers.
For the first 5 months of the year, there were 40 incidents with firearms discharged compared to 58 last year, 16 attempted murders compared to 20 in 2022, and homicides went down, 3 this year compared to 6 a year ago. The SPVM says targeted operations like this one on April 26 that resulted in 8 arrests contributed to the results. Montreal police also have a new strategy in the field.
The idea is decentralization of this type of integrated efforts. So we were doing it at the Montreal police level, at a higher level. We had a unit for prevention, unit for drugs, unit for guns, units. Now we're taking people from each of these units, bringing them to the same table.
Media relations specialist and former Montreal police inspector André Durocher says the data should be taken with a grain of salt.
The shockwave that happened when they put out the annual report last week, they had to find some good news. With that being said, I'm not, discrediting the fact that, yes, it's down, but it's for a given period. 5 months is just the blink of an eye, so we're going to have to wait and see many more months before we could see if it's an actual tendency.
Daguerre recognizes that organized crime is going through a transition phase. He knows it's too early to say their strategy is working.
Please be careful with numbers. We don't know what's going to happen in the next days, next weeks.
Officers also seized 367 firearms compared to 260 last year. But police chief says the real test will be this summer. Melissa François, CBC News, Montreal.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. CBC Vancouver is the premier media partner of the 2023 Surrey Fusion Festival, July 22nd and 23rd. Visit the festive cultural pavilions, enjoy free live music and family activities. And the 13th annual Indian Summer Festival takes place July 6th to the 16th. The festival's powerful 10-event lineup speaks to the theme of interdependence. Tickets at indiansummerfest.ca.
A lost animal in Hickson, just south of Prince George, has a new home. A female pot-bellied pig is settling into her new digs at Tickled Pig Rescue. Carrie Hagel says she got calls about an abandoned pig at a rest stop on Highway 97 on Thursday, and without a plan, she got in her vehicle to go get the little one. She says construction workers in the area say they've seen the pig there off and on. It's believed she's been there for a while, hoping to get treats from drivers pulling in.
She was just in need, right? Like the minute we saw her and she needed vet care, well, then I'm just quick to jump on it, right? See her limping around the rest stop looking for food.
Oh, she's a smart and cute piggy. She's asking for name ideas for the pig, and you can leave one commenting on the Tickled Pink Rescue Facebook page. They will be choosing a name by Thursday when she goes for a checkup with the vet. Oh, that was a nice last little story. All right, that's it for us tonight. Thank you for being with us on CBC Vancouver News at 6 this Monday. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app as well. Dan Burt will be here at 11 o'clock. Have a good night.